You open your eyes slowly, not because you are tired, but because your brain is trying to understand where you are and why the air feels so heavy and still, almost as if the entire world around you is holding its breath. For a few seconds, you hear nothing except your own heartbeat, a soft, steady pulse that echoes inside your ears like a distant drum, and then, very faintly, a low vibration rolls through the metal floor beneath your feet, so deep and so slow that you feel it before you. Recognize it as sound. You look around, confused at first, and realize you are inside a small, pressurized habitat, no larger than a studio apartment, with rounded walls made of reinforced alloy and transparent sections that curve outward like the lens of a giant eye. There is no sunlight here, no blue, no shimmer, only a dense, infinite darkness pressing against every side of the structure. A darkness so complete that even your reflection in the glass feels like it wants to disappear into it. You take a cautious step forward, and the faint clicking of the suit joints reminds you that you are more than 10,000 meters below the surface of the ocean, in the deepest place a human can possibly stand without being crushed, and the weight of that realization settles into your chest like a cold, invisible hand. Then you notice something strange, something that should be impossible. In the corner of your vision, just beyond the curved window to your right, a soft blue glow begins to appear out of nothing, as if someone turned on a small lantern in the vast emptiness outside. But there is no one here with you, no other habitat, no submarine, no underwater drone scheduled for this depth. The glow grows brighter, slow and pulsing, and your instincts whisper that you should take one step back, but your curiosity, that deep and ancient part of the human mind that always wants to know what lies beyond the dark, pulls you forward instead. You lean closer to the glass, the condensation on, the inside fogging slightly with your breath, and your eyes widen as the glow drifts closer and closer until it reveals a shape you cannot fully understand. A long, ribbon-like silhouette with delicate sparks of blue and white running through its body, moving gracefully, almost intentionally, as if aware of you. For a moment it hovers there, inches from the window, and you swear, just for the briefest heartbeat, that the light patterns running along its form shift in a way that resembles recognition, as if it is looking back at you. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the creature glides away into the darkness, leaving only fading streaks of blue glowing in the water like the tail of a falling star. And you stand frozen, unsure whether you should call this a hallucination, a discovery, or a greeting. But before you can decide, a quiet, steady hum begins to rise through the structure, reminding you that every second you spend down here is a delicate dance with physics. Pressure and survival, and you exhale slowly, steadying yourself as a new thought forms in your mind. If this place can hold creatures like that, beings adapted to exist where light itself refuses to come, then what would it truly be like if you had to live here, not just for a moment, but forever? What would it feel like to wake up every day in a world without dawn, without sky, without sound, where your home sits at the bottom of a crushing ocean? Alone in an endless night. Tonight, you will discover exactly that, step by step, breath by breath, as we explore what your life would actually be like at the bottom of the ocean, if you lived there. The first thing you notice, as the hum of the habitat settles into a stable rhythm, is an odd sense of heaviness in your chest. Not painful, not frightening, just different, like the air itself is thicker, fuller, carrying a weight your lungs are not used to. You take a slow breath, letting it fill you completely, and your body responds with a small wave of warmth that spreads from your diaphragm to your shoulders, an instinctive adjustment to an environment your biology was never designed to survive. At this depth, the pressure outside is more than 1,000 times greater than at the surface, strong enough to crush a submarine, strong enough to collapse a steel tank as if it were made of paper, and the only thing separating you from that unimaginable force is the engineering wrapped around you. The walls that hold a controlled atmosphere, the suit that stabilizes your joints, the systems that constantly correct every imbalance before it becomes a danger. You pause and place your hand on the interior wall, feeling the faint, steady vibration of the pressure regulators working tirelessly, a mechanical heartbeat that keeps you alive moment by moment. If you were exposed to the outside for even a second, the ocean would close around you instantly, compressing every pocket of air in your body, flattening your lungs, collapsing your sinuses, forcing nitrogen into your bloodstream at levels no human physiology can withstand. But inside this controlled environment, your body begins the slow, subtle process of adaptation, not to the pressure itself, but to the knowledge of it, to the awareness that you are surrounded by an invisible force capable of reshaping anything caught in its grasp. Scientists call this psychological compression, the mind's attempt to understand a world where the rules feel inverted, where up and down are meaningless, where the environment around you is not a place to move freely, but a vast, heavy presence that must be respected at every moment. As you continue to breathe, you start to feel a soft tingling in your fingertips, a result of blood flow redistributing in response to the slightly cooler air and the constant hum of systems adjusting oxygen levels, and you flex your hands gently, enjoying the way the suit moves with you, fluid and precise like an extension of your own body. Down here, every movement matters, every gesture carries intention, and the simple act of raising your arm or turning your head feels almost ceremonial, like a dancer performing slow, deliberate motions in a silent underwater cathedral. Your ears adjust next, perceiving the slight changes in pressure inside the habitat, and you swallow reflexively, feeling the familiar pop of equalization, followed by a soothing sense of balance. It's strange how the body, despite its fragility, tries so naturally to create stability, even in a place where stability is unnatural. And as minutes pass, you begin to sense that your breathing has found a rhythm perfectly synchronized with the environment, not forced, not strained, but aligned with the quiet heartbeat of this metal sanctuary resting at the bottom of the sea. The pressure outside may be enough to bend steel, but inside, your body adapts in the way humans always do, through patience, through adjustment, through the slow acceptance that survival here is not about strength, but about harmony with forces far greater than yourself. And with each breath, each swallow, each careful movement, you settle more deeply into the reality that this is your new home, a world where the ocean itself sits just beyond the glass, waiting, watching, pressing in all around you, yet held at bay by the fragile, miraculous shell that keeps you alive. As your breathing steadies and the weight of the ocean fades into the background hum of the habitat, you finally take the time to explore the small chamber that will serve as your home in this silent world. The interior feels surprisingly warm, not in temperature, but in presence, as if the soft, indirect lights built into the curved walls are doing their best to mimic something your mind understands, an imitation of dawn, a gentle glow that never truly brightens, but keeps the darkness outside. From swallowing you whole, your footsteps are muted by the padded flooring, a dark, rubberized surface designed to absorb sound, so nothing startles you or resonates through the metal shell, because even a tiny vibration could attract curious creatures or disturb delicate equipment. Directly in front of you sits a compact workstation built into the wall, its screens displaying slow-moving graphs of oxygen levels, internal pressure, and the filtered currents flowing around the habitat, each one changing so gradually that watching them feels strangely calming, like observing the breathing pattern of a sleeping giant. To your left, tucked neatly into a recessed alcove, is the sleeping berth, more of a horizontal cocoon than a bed, lined with soft memory foam that molds to your body and helps counter the strange sensation of floating even on solid ground. And the moment you touch it with your hand, you imagine how comforting it will feel after hours spent watching the darkness press against the window. The kitchen area, if you can call it that, is a minimalist arrangement of sealed nutrient packs, a small hydration station, and a warming panel that slides out like a drawer, humming quietly as it prepares the simplified meals designed to keep you nourished in an environment where cooking is impossible and scents could attract unwanted visitors. When you open one of the storage compartments, you find tightly organized tools, spare filters, fiber optic coils, pressure seals, and personal items stored in transparent pockets, each labeled, each precisely placed, because down here there is no room for clutter, no margin for misplacing something you may desperately need later. On the far side of the habitat sits the observation dome, the place that will become both your window to another world and your reminder of how far from the surface you have traveled. A curved bubble of reinforced transparent alloy that juts out slightly into the water, allowing you to sit inside it as if resting within the throat of the ocean itself. You step closer, feeling a subtle drop in temperature, and when you kneel inside the dome, the view steals your breath, not because of fear, but because of the deafening, endless silence that stretches in every direction. Tiny white particles drift by like slow-motion snow, illuminated only by the habitat's faint light reflecting off them, and each one twists and spirals with its own rhythm, carrying the memory of currents traveling thousands of miles before settling here. The darkness is so complete, so total, that it feels less like an absence of light and more like a physical element pressing gently against the dome, a velvet black canvas waiting for something to move across it. You sit there for a long moment listening to the faint electrical hum behind you, feeling the quiet embrace the walls, and you begin to understand that this place, this pressurized, humming metal shell, will reshape not just your routines, but your thoughts, your sense of time, your idea of solitude. Here, you cannot rush, cannot escape, cannot distract yourself with noise or motion, because everything is slow, deliberate, and deeply silent. This habitat is more than a shelter, more than a machine. It is the boundary between your fragile body and an ocean that has existed untouched for millions of years. And as you place your hand gently on the cold surface of the dome, you feel an unfamiliar comfort in knowing that this small, floating refuge is the only piece of the surface world you brought with you into the abyss, and it will be the center of everything you experience from now on. The first time you truly understand what absolute darkness means is when the habitat's internal lights dim automatically for their scheduled night cycle. A slow fade that feels gentle at first, but quickly reveals just how dependent your eyes have been on even the smallest hint of illumination. Within seconds, the walls around you shift from pale grey to a deep, velvety black, and the observation dome transforms into a portal of pure emptiness, a void so complete that your brain struggles to process it, reaching instinctively for familiar shapes, reflections, anything that would normally anchor you. But there is nothing. You blink once, twice, waiting for your pupils to adjust. But instead of sharpening your vision, the darkness swallows whatever clarity you expect to find, making you feel as if you are floating in an endless room without walls, without ceiling, without any boundary telling you where your world ends and the ocean begins. The silence deepens with the darkness, merging into a single presence that wraps around you like a heavy blanket, soft yet overwhelming. And as your breathing becomes the only audible sound, you become aware of how fragile your body feels compared to the monumental stillness outside. Then, just when your mind begins to settle into that pitch-black calm, a small spark of blue flickers near the edge of the dome, barely a pinprick at first. No brighter than a distant star, but unmistakably alive. It pulses slowly, drifting nearer, and then another appears, and another, until the darkness begins to shimmer with tiny floating lights that move with an elegance so unhurried, so fluid, that watching them feels like witnessing thoughts drifting through the mind of the ocean itself. You lean closer, mesmerized, as one of the bioluminescent creatures, no larger than a leaf, spirals upward in a slow helix, leaving behind a faint trail of glowing particles that linger like dust caught in a beam of light. These are not predators, not threats, but soft, radiant beings that exist in a world where sunlight has never touched. Creatures whose bodies create their own glow through chemical reactions that have evolved over millions of years, perfectly adapted to an environment where illumination is not a luxury but a language. As more of them drift past, you begin to see patterns in their movement. Gentle pulses, rhythmic flashes, swirling dances that seem to tell stories only they can understand. One floats close to the dome, so close you can see the tiny tendrils along its body, flickering like strands of fiber-optic thread, and for a moment it hovers there, suspended between you and the unknowable vastness behind it, its glow painting soft ripples of blue across your face. In that stillness, you feel something unexpected, peace, deep and quiet, the kind that comes not from silence, but from witnessing something that has existed long before humans ever wondered what lay beneath the waves. Here, in this abyssal night, the darkness isn't empty at all. It's full of life that learned to write its existence with light instead of form, with movement instead of sound, with presence instead of shape. You press your hand against the transparent dome, and the creature pulses brighter for a brief second, as if acknowledging the warmth on the other side, and then it glides away, dissolving into the blackness like a thought, fading from memory. You stay there for a long time, watching more glowing forms drift past, some tiny like drifting embers, others faint outlines of larger beings whose soft glows stretch across meters of water, each one reminding you that even in the deepest darkness, life finds a way to be seen. Eventually, the habitat lights brighten slightly again, returning the room to its dim, artificial glow, but the memory of that living darkness lingers inside you, settling like a quiet understanding. Down here, light does not reveal the world around you. Light is the world around you, a fragile thread, connecting you to everything that moves through the eternal night of the ocean's deepest depths. It takes only a few hours of living at the bottom of the ocean for you to realize that silence down here is not the absence of sound, but a new kind of sound entirely, one that wraps itself around you with the softness of a whisper and the weight of a cathedral. At first you think the habitat is quiet, almost unnervingly so, but as you sit in the observation dome, letting your breathing slow to a gentle rhythm, you begin to notice the tiny layers woven into the stillness, each one subtle and almost imperceptible, until your mind stops searching for the noises you're used to and starts hearing the ones that truly exist in this world. The first sound you detect is the faintest hum of the habitat's life support systems, a calming vibration that feels less like machinery and more like the steady exhale of a sleeping companion, constant, predictable, and comforting in its reliability. Beneath that, there's another sound, softer and more delicate, like distant raindrops falling on a metal roof. And it takes you a moment to realize that these are microscopic particles striking the exterior hull as they drift through the deep currents, each tiny impact creating a sound too light for your ears to detect consciously, but noticeable in the way your body senses vibration through bone and skin. Then, as you focus even more, you become aware of a third sound, something so strange and primal that it sends a cool shiver down your neck. Not out of fear, but out of awe, because this sound is not coming from your habitat at all, but from the ocean itself. Deep below the surface, far beyond the reach of sunlight or warmth, the ocean speaks in low-frequency rumbles that travel unimaginable distances, resonating through the water like ancient voices calling from one end of the world to the other. And although you cannot tell what creatures or movements create them, each vibration carries a slow, rhythmic pattern that feels almost musical, almost intentional, as if the sea is breathing. and you are only now hearing the sound of its lungs. Sometimes the rumbles stretch out in long, trembling waves that make the glass dome vibrate very gently beneath your fingertips, and other times they come as short, soft pulses, like a heart beating somewhere far away. Between these natural sounds are the quietest creaks of the habitat itself, tiny adjustments in the structure as it resists the crushing weight outside. Each one a reminder that the ocean is not still, not passive, but in constant dialogue with the vessel that shelters you. Yet perhaps the most surprising sound of all comes from inside your own body. The subtle cadence of your breathing echoing softly in your mask, the slow thump of your heartbeat resonating in your chest, and the occasional shift of your muscles as they relax into the slow rhythm of this environment. In a place where external noise is nearly non-existent, your body becomes an instrument of sound, each function amplified by the stillness, each breath a gentle ripple in the quiet sea of your mind. After a while, you begin to embrace this silence that isn't silence, letting each subtle vibration lull you into a meditative calm, a state where the boundary between your body and the ocean feels thinner, almost as if you are sharing the same rhythm, the same pulse, the same slow dance of movement and rest. And as you close your eyes inside the observation dome, listening to the hum of the habitat merge with the distant calls of the deep, you begin to understand something profound. Silence here isn't emptiness, it's presence, a living, breathing entity that surrounds you like a vast, invisible companion, reminding you with every subtle sound that even in the darkest and quietest place on earth, the world is never truly still. As you sit in the dim glow of the habitat, letting the subtle sounds of the deep lull your mind into a gentle state of awareness, something shifts outside, so softly that you almost miss it, like a shadow brushing past the edge of your vision. And when you turn toward the observation dome, your breath catches for a moment, not from fear, but from the quiet shock of seeing a creature so foreign, so delicately built for this world, that your mind hesitates to decide whether it belongs to a dream or to reality. It moves slowly, gracefully, its translucent body rippling with pulses of faint color, soft blues, muted greens, shimmering silver that glides across its form like moonlight drifting through water. And as it turns, you realize its entire body is structured like a living ribbon, thin and flexible, bending effortlessly with every subtle current around it. This is a deep-sea siphonophore, a colony organism made of hundreds of interconnected beings functioning as one, and its movements are so fluid, so synchronized, that watching it feels like witnessing a living silk thread dance through the ocean's eternal night. Then, from the opposite direction, a second creature drifts into view, this one compact and rounded, with large, shimmering plates along its sides that flicker like tiny lanterns each time it pulses forward. And you recognize it, at least from documentaries, as a comb jelly, one of the simplest forms of life in the deep, but also among the most mesmerizing, its rows of comb-like cilia catching the habitat's faint light and breaking it into a delicate rainbow that ripples along its body. You lean forward, entranced, as it spins slowly, leaving a faint trail of glowing particles behind it, like a comet making its slow journey through a dark and distant sky. A few minutes pass, and the waters outside shift again with a gentle swirl of drifting snow-like particles. Marine snow, tiny fragments of life from far above that settle into the abyss like crumbs falling. From a table miles in the sky, and from within that drifting cloud, emerges something larger, something elegant in a way you did not expect. A long, undulating silhouette, with fins so broad and thin they move like curtains of silk in a slow breeze. This deep-sea ray glides effortlessly past the dome, its wings brushing through the darkness as though it's painting a path through ink, its tail trailing behind like a delicate stroke of calligraphy. Its bioluminescent spots blink in a soft pattern, Not chaotic, but rhythmic, like the steady beat of a distant lighthouse, guiding it through an otherwise featureless world. And then, just as you begin to think you've seen the full range of deep-sea life, a faint, golden glow pulses near the seafloor. A soft, regular heartbeat glowing from inside a small, bulbous creature resting on a patch of dark sediment. As you watch, it expands and contracts gently, like a sleeping animal inhaling and exhaling, though there is no breath here, only chemical. Light moving through tissues adapted for a world without sun. Around it, tiny amphipods dart like specks of dust, their movements erratic but purposeful, illuminated briefly by the creature's glow before they vanish again into the dark. With each passing moment, more life drifts into view. Slender fish with transparent skin revealing their organs like floating glass sculptures. Crustaceans with limbs that move so slowly they seem to be operating on a different timeline. And long eel-like forms that weave through the water with a calm, hypnotic rhythm, their bodies glowing faintly from symbiotic bacteria that help them navigate and attract food. Everything moves at half speed here, not because the creatures are weak, but because the deep demands patience, energy conservation, and a kind of silent grace that the surface world rarely sees. And as you watch this quiet ballet unfold, light flickering on soft bodies, currents carrying delicate forms, the darkness glowing for seconds before, returning to shadow, you feel something shift inside you, a peaceful sense of belonging in a place that should be hostile but somehow feels serene, as if the ocean is whispering that even in its deepest reaches, life finds a way to be gentle, beautiful, and impossibly imaginative. Morning down here is not a change in light, but a shift in routine, a slow realignment of your body to the gentle rhythm of the habitat as it simulates a subtle dawn by raising the temperature just a fraction of a degree and brightening the internal lamps by barely perceptible increments, creating the illusion of a sunrise. Your eyes cannot see, but your mind finds comfort in. You stretch inside your suit, feeling the fabric glide smoothly along your arms and legs, and as you sit up in the deep sleeping berth, the soft hum of the oxygen recycler blends into the background, becoming part of the underwater quiet you now recognize as your version of morning birdsong. After a few minutes, you make your way to the hydration station, pressing your thumb to the small panel that dispenses warm, mineral-rich water meant to replace what your body loses through the constant balancing act of temperature and pressure. It tastes faintly metallic, but the warmth relaxes your chest and throat, grounding you before the day begins. You check the habitat systems, scanning slowly through each screen, watching graphs rise and fall with the predictable rhythm of infrastructure functioning as it should. Oxygen steady, CO2 filters at 86% capacity, internal pressure perfectly aligned, external currents mild and flowing steadily east. Then you prepare for your daily walk outside, a ritual that feels both surreal and strangely normal now, like stepping out into a different dimension where silence is thicker than air and movement feels like an ancient choreography. Suiting up takes time, not because the process is complex, but because each step must be precise. Checking seals, confirming exoskeleton alignment, verifying your light source, linking your suit to the habitat's tether system that ensures you never drift beyond reach. Once fully equipped, you depressurize the small airlock, hearing the gentle hiss of equalization before the outer door slides open with a soft mechanical sigh, revealing the vast darkness waiting patiently outside. Stepping out is always slow, deliberate, like entering a sacred space, because here every movement matters, and the water greets you with a cool, dense embrace that feels almost like hands guiding you gently downward. The ground beneath your feet, if it can be called ground, is a soft, uneven mixture of fine sediment and crushed shells that have drifted for centuries from ecosystems miles above, creating a surface that compresses slightly under your weight but remains firm enough to walk on. Each step sends up a faint cloud of particles that drift lazily around your boots before settling again in slow, elegant spirals, as though dancing in response to your presence. The tether line extends from your back to the habitat, glowing faintly with a soft blue pulse that gently illuminates your path and reminds you that no matter how far you wander, the habitat is your anchor, your lifeline to warmth, oxygen, and safety. You walk slowly, letting the exoskeleton assist your joints, feeling your muscles relax into the familiar rhythm of movement. And soon your eyes begin to pick out faint shapes in the dark, small hills of sediment, clusters of brittle stars stretching their thin arms across the seafloor, pale anemones swaying with ghostly grace, and occasional flashes of bioluminescence as tiny organisms brush past you with soft sparks of green and blue. From time to time, a larger shadow glides by in the distance, slow and unhurried, moving with the natural authority of a creature that has lived in this world long before humans learned to stand upright. But there is no fear here, only respect, because the ocean at this depth does not attack, does not rush, does not behave with the unpredictability of shallow waters. It moves with patience, with quiet intention, and you are merely a visitor walking across its silent floor. After completing your loop around the habitat, you return through the airlock, feeling the suit decompress around you with a soft pop in your ears, and once inside, you remove the exoskeleton piece by piece, letting your muscles readjust to artificial gravity and warmth. The rest of your day unfolds slowly, organizing tools, performing small maintenance tasks, recalibrating sensors, observing the gentle ballet of creatures drifting past the dome, writing notes about how your body feels different now, and through it all, time seems to stretch and soften as if the deep sea itself has reached inside your internal clock and stretched each minute into something fuller, quieter, and strangely peaceful. By the time the lights dim again for your simulated night, you settle into your berth with a calm awareness that life here is not measured by hours or tasks, but by the slow, steady rhythm of existing in a world where everything moves with purpose and stillness intertwines effortlessly with motion. Survival at the bottom of the ocean is not a single action, but 1,000 tiny calculations happening every moment, most of them handled by machines you must trust more than your own instincts. As you settle back into the habitat after your daily walk, the shift from the cold, thick water to the warm, controlled air feels almost like stepping through a portal into another universe, one built entirely around the idea of keeping you alive in a place that has no natural space for human life. You sit at the workstation and begin your routine checks, not out of obligation, but because knowing how the habitat functions brings a sense of calm, a reassurance that everything around you is predictable and stable. The oxygen generator hums softly as it draws in water, splits the molecules, and releases fresh O2 into the cabin, a process so constant and rhythmic that you begin to think of it as the habitat's breathing, steady, patient, something you can depend on. Next to it, the CO2 scrubbers work with equal determination, pulling carbon dioxide from the air and trapping it in absorbent filters that slowly turn dark over weeks of use. Each filter a quiet archive of your existence down here, recording every breath you have taken since you arrived. You open a new filter pack, feeling the thin, powdery material inside, and slide it into place with a satisfying click, knowing that even something as invisible as carbon dioxide becomes a strong adversary in an environment this enclosed. Then there is the issue of water, clean, drinkable water that must be reclaimed from every possible source, from humidity, from condensation on the walls, from the sealed tanks beneath the floor. You watch as the reclamation system cycles through its purification phases, heating, cooling, filtering, mineralizing, each stage carefully balancing what your body needs to function in a place where sweating feels different, hunger arrives slower, and your sense of thirst becomes so subtle you must rely on timers rather than instinct. Food is its own science here too. The nutrient packs are engineered for efficiency, containing precise ratios of carbohydrates, proteins and fats, meant to sustain a body under constant pressure. And though they lack the textures and flavors of surface meals, the warm, smooth consistency becomes strangely comforting after days in the abyss, almost like the culinary equivalent of a lullaby. Your body responds to this environment in its own quiet ways. Your muscles conserve energy, your heart rate slows, your lungs adjust to the slightly denser air, and your inner ear gradually stops searching for sounds that don't exist, letting the slow vibrations around you act as your new compass. Sometimes you catch yourself breathing more deeply than usual, not because you are out of breath, but because the air here feels different, slightly cooler, slightly heavier, slightly more deliberate, and your body aligns with it like a metronome syncing to a slower beat. Psychologically, the transformation is just as fascinating. Your thoughts stretch the way time stretches down here, drifting more fluidly, lingering on ideas longer, exploring memories with a softness you never felt on the surface. Even your sense of space changes. What once felt small and confined gradually becomes protective, like the inside of a seashell clinging to a rock, perfectly formed for its purpose. You begin to understand why deep-sea explorers talk about the compression of the mind, not a physical squeezing but a filtering of thought, stripping away everything unnecessary until only the essential remains: breath, warmth, routine, presence. And through this slow, almost meditative process of survival, you learn that living at the bottom of the ocean is not about dominating the environment, not about conquering the deep, but about cooperating with it, respecting its rhythms, trusting the thin barrier of technology that keeps you safe, and adapting your body and mind to a world where every molecule, every vibration, every quiet hum inside the habitat works together to cradle your fragile existence in the vast, ancient pressure of the abyss. The deeper you live in the ocean, the more you realize that this world is not empty or still. It is full of quiet mysteries that reveal themselves only when you learn to look slowly, patiently, the way the deep expects you to. One of the first phenomena you notice is the way light behaves at this depth, because even the faintest glow from your habitat seems to bend strangely around objects, dissolving edges and stretching shadows into long, soft curves that drift across the seafloor like slow-moving clouds. The water here is so dense, so saturated with microscopic particles, that illumination works more like fog than clarity, transforming simple shapes into shifting silhouettes you must decipher with time rather than sight. Sometimes, as you observe through the dome, you catch a sudden glimmer far in the distance, a flash not bright enough to be a creature, but not random enough to be just drifting debris. And you feel that small, familiar spark of curiosity, wondering whether it came from a mineral reflecting your own light, a vent releasing heat from the Earth's crust, or something alive marking its territory with a pulse invisible in any shallower sea. You begin logging these distant flashes, noting the direction, brightness, and duration, building your own quiet map of the deep, though you know these observations are more poetic than scientific, since the deep refuses to stay still long enough for certainty. Then there are the currents, slow, powerful rivers of cold, water moving thick and silent across the seafloor, so gentle you barely notice them, until you see how they push fine sand into graceful dunes or carry bioluminescent creatures past your window in swirling spirals that look almost choreographed. Some nights, sitting in the dome with the lights dimmed, you watch these currents pass by, like time itself flowing in a visible form, carrying with them hints of distant worlds, fragments of ecosystems miles away that drift down here in tiny, glowing threads. Occasionally, the habitat sensors detect something more unusual, a low-frequency vibration from far off in the darkness, coming from a direction where no geological activity is expected. And while you know deep-sea animals use infrasound to communicate across enormous distances, there is always a moment when your mind wonders who is speaking and to whom, before the rational explanation settles back over your thoughts like soft sediment falling through water. Sometimes you observe strange trails on the seafloor, delicate patterns etched into the sand overnight that look like the paths of creatures you never actually see, looping in precise curves or repeating in spirals that seem too organized to be random. Scientists speculate these patterns come from deep-sea worms, sea cucumbers, or small crustaceans searching for food. But when you first notice them illuminated by your lamp, they look almost like messages written in a language older than the continents. And then there are the vents, dark, towering chimneys rising from the ocean floor, releasing hot mineral-rich water that shimmers like smoke underwater, creating ghostly plumes that twist upward before dissolving into the colder currents above. Near these vents, life crowds together in ways you would never expect in such a hostile world. Tiny shrimp clustered in glowing swarms, tube worms taller than your arm with red pulsing tips, and strange pale crabs that move with a slow, deliberate confidence as if they own this patch of seafloor. Watching them makes you realize that even in places that should be barren, the earth finds ways to create pockets of abundance, entire ecosystems thriving in heat and chemicals instead of sunlight and oxygen. And yet, for all the phenomena you can observe and explain, there are others that remain stubbornly elusive. Faint movements glimpsed only at the edge of your vision, lights that appear and vanish before you can record them, and distant shapes too large to identify, passing through the dark with a calm, purposeful glide that reminds you that this world holds secrets no human has fully understood. These mysteries do not frighten you. Instead, they deepen your connection to the deep, grounding you in the truth that the ocean is not just a place, but a presence, ancient and patient, revealing itself only in fragments, inviting you to watch, to wonder, and to accept that some questions are meant not to be answered, but simply observed as they drift quietly through the eternal night. Living at the bottom of the ocean means accepting that even in this calm, slow-moving world, there are risks woven gently into the environment, risks that rarely arrive suddenly or violently, but instead linger like quiet reminders that this place is older, stronger, and far less forgiving than the world above. One of the first dangers you learn to respect is the immense pressure surrounding the habitat, a constant force pressing inward with the weight of an entire mountain of water above you. And while the reinforced alloy shell keeps you safe, it occasionally emits soft creaks, tiny adjustments in the metal that are perfectly normal but always catch your attention, reminding you of the delicate balance that allows you to exist in a world where even a small structural flaw would have consequences your body could not survive. Yet these sounds become familiar over time, almost like the stretching of a wooden ship or the settling of a house at night. And instead of fear, they inspire a respectful awareness, a feeling of partnership with the habitat as it holds the ocean back inch by inch. Then there are the currents, which in the deep move slowly but carry incredible force. Most days, they slip past the habitat like soft rivers, but on rare occasions, they surge with enough strength to push fine particles across the dome like a slow-motion storm of silver dust. Your senses warn you of these shifts long before they become significant, and you sit inside with calm detachment, feeling the water move around the structure as if the deep itself were exhaling a long, ancient breath. Geological activity is another quiet risk. Small tremors along the ocean floor that you cannot hear but can feel as subtle vibrations beneath your feet, like distant thunder rolling through the earth's bones. Most are harmless, mere whispers in the crust far below, but they remind you that you are living in a dynamic world shaped by forces far older than humanity, a world where the ground can shift gently beneath you without warning, Occasionally, your instruments detect temperature anomalies in the water, slight increases or decreases caused by distant hydrothermal activity or shifting mineral vents, and although they are far enough away not to threaten your habitat, you note them carefully, understanding that the deep is constantly rearranging itself in ways that happen too slowly or too quietly for your eyes to see. Even the creatures here contribute to the list of risks, though not in the way surface animals do. No deep-sea creature hunts you, stalks you, or sees you as prey. Your habitat is too foreign, too unnatural. But some of them are simply enormous, vast silhouettes that pass through the darkness like drifting continents, their movements slow but powerful, their sheer mass capable of brushing the tether line or stirring the sediments with enough force to shake the dome lightly. You encounter these beings rarely, maybe once every few days, and when you do, the sight is humbling rather than frightening, reminding you that in this world, size and age walk hand in hand, and survival often belongs to creatures that have spent millions of years adapting to the impossible. The final category of risk is psychological, though even that feels softer down here than it would above. Isolation has a way of amplifying your inner landscape, magnifying thoughts and stretching time until hours feel like entire chapters in a quiet book. But because the deep moves slowly and your routine is steady, your mind adapts in ways you didn't expect, settling into the gentle rhythm of maintenance, observation, and rest. Still, you are aware that solitude requires care. You speak aloud to yourself sometimes, not out of loneliness, but to hear the familiar cadence of a human voice, and you spend long moments sitting in the observation dome, grounding your thoughts in the slow ballet of drifting life. In truth, the risks of the abyss are real, but not dramatic, not loud, not sudden. They are quiet, patient, ancient forces that demand respect, awareness, and a willingness to move slowly, listen carefully, and trust the thin boundary between your fragile existence and the vast, dark ocean that surrounds you like a timeless, watching presence. After several weeks at the bottom of the ocean, you begin to notice changes in yourself, not sudden or dramatic, but soft, gradual shifts that creep into your daily life the same way the deep currents slide over the seafloor, subtle enough that you only recognize them when you pause long enough to feel the difference. Your breathing, for instance, becomes slower and deeper without you consciously adjusting it, matching the calm, dense air of the habitat and syncing with the faint hum of the systems around you, as if your lungs have quietly negotiated a new rhythm with the environment. Your heart rate follows the same pattern, settling into a steadier beat that echoes through your chest with a comforting regularity, the kind that only appears when your body is no longer fighting its surroundings, but moving in harmony with them. Your muscles, too, shift their behavior. You are no longer tense the way you were during the first days, bracing for the unfamiliarity of cold water and heavy silence. Instead, your body relaxes as if recognizing the constancy of this place, allowing the exoskeleton to do most of the work during your walks, while your own movements become smoother, slower, and almost meditative, each step deliberate and unhurried, like walking through a world made of glass. The suit that once felt stiff and foreign now feels like an extension of your body, responding to even the smallest shift of your shoulders or fingers with fluid precision. And sometimes you forget you are wearing it at all until you return to the airlock and feel the decompression change the weight across your joints. Your skin adapts as well, drying slightly from the recycled air, but adjusting its balance with creams and hydration routines that become part of your nightly ritual, each action grounding you in a sense of gentle self-maintenance that feels strangely intimate in the quiet of the abyss. Even your sleep deepens. You rest longer and more soundly, lulled by the soft hum of the oxygen recycler, the gentle creak of the habitat's metal adjusting to the pressure, and the faint, distant rumbles of the ocean moving like a slow heartbeat outside your walls. Your dreams stretch out too, drifting in long, fluid scenes that mimic the slow dance of the bioluminescent creatures you watch each evening, as if your subconscious has adopted the ocean's pace and pulled it into your inner landscape. Psychologically, the transformation is equally fascinating. The need for constant stimulation fades, replaced by an appreciation for small details. The spiral trail left by a crustacean on the sediment near your habitat, the soft glow of marine snow drifting like silent confetti, the flicker of a distant creature marking the darkness with a brief flare of light. Your thoughts become more spacious, less rushed, expanding to fill the long stretches of quiet in ways that feel calming instead of lonely. And you begin to understand why some explorers describe the deep not as isolation, but as clarity, a place where the mind can finally stop echoing the noise of the surface world and settle into its true scale. Time itself shifts, no longer broken into sharp segments, but flowing like a slow current. Morning blending into midday, midday dissolving into night, each phase marked not by the sun, but by your own cycles of maintenance, observation, exploration, and rest. Your emotions soften too, becoming quieter and more steady, as if the heavy darkness around you absorbs sharpness and amplifies calm. Even the rare moments of tension, an unexpected vibration, a stronger current, a sudden flicker of something large moving in the distance, fade quickly into curiosity, because fear loses its urgency in a place that moves so slowly, where nothing rushes and nothing startles without warning. After weeks in the abyss, you are no longer just living here. You are adapting, transforming, aligning your body, mind and senses with a world built on patience, silence, and the quiet pulse of an ocean that has existed unchanged for millions of years. And as you sit in the observation dome one evening, tracing your finger along the cold curve of the glass, while faint blue lights drift by like wandering stars, you realize with gentle certainty that this place, this dark, ancient space, has begun to reshape you from the inside out, teaching you a new way of existing, breathing, thinking, and simply being. It happens on a day like any other, or at least as close to any other as days can be in a world without sun or sky, while you sit in the quiet warmth of the observation dome, watching the slow drift of marine snow fall through the darkness like a silent snowfall that never reaches the ground. Your mind is peaceful, loosened by weeks of stillness, your thoughts stretching gently across the dim glow of the habitat, when a sudden pulse of faint blue appears at the edge of your vision, so soft and brief that at first you think it's just your eyes adjusting, but then it comes again, a small, rhythmic flare of light moving through the black like a heartbeat echoing from the depths, and in an instant, memory floods back. The creature from your first night here, the drifting ribbon of shimmering blue that hovered near your window, as if studying you, before gliding away into the abyss. You lean forward instinctively, your breath slowing, your eyes tracing the faint trail of illumination as it pulses again, brighter this time, shaping itself into a long, elegant silhouette emerging from the dark. It moves exactly as you remember, fluid, weightless, each pulse of light sliding through its body like a message carried down a river, and as it approaches, you feel a familiar sense of awe rise inside you, not sharp or startling, but warm and steady, the way someone feels when a long-lost friend unexpectedly returns. The creature drifts closer, so close that its bioluminescent patterns paint shifting reflections across your face, and you notice details you missed before, thin, delicate filaments extending from its sides, like glowing threads of silk, each one bending softly with the current, and along its body, faint lines of iridescence that ripple in response to the habitat's faint light. It circles once around the dome, moving with a precision that feels intentional, as though it remembers your presence, as if your last encounter left an imprint on its strange, luminous mind. You place your hand gently on the cold curve of the glass, not expecting anything, simply offering a point of stillness, And to your surprise, the creature responds. Not by touching, but by slowing its movement until it hovers directly before you, its pulsing lights becoming softer, more synchronized, almost rhythmic, like a deep-sea version of steady breathing. For a moment, the two of you, the human inside the metal shell and the luminous being outside, exist in a quiet symmetry, separated by only a few centimeters of reinforced alloy, but connected by the shared silence of the abyss. Then, just as you begin to wonder whether this pause will stretch on forever, the creature shifts slightly, turning so its body angles toward the seafloor, and a new glow appears behind it. Not blue this time, but a soft golden haze rising from the darkness like a candle burning in deep water. The creature pulses once, twice, and the golden light brightens, revealing something unexpected, a cluster of smaller organisms, each one flickering with its own gentle glow, arranged in a formation so symmetrical and calm that it resembles a constellation drifting upward from the ocean floor. You watch, mesmerized, as the larger creature loops around them, guiding their movement with slow passes, and suddenly you realize that what you're witnessing is not random, not drifting, not accidental, but a coordinated gathering, a kind of deep-sea choreography shaped by light rather than sound. Some scientists have theorized that creatures in the abyss may communicate through bioluminescent pulses, patterns acting like conversations, warnings or invitations across the pressure of the dark. But seeing it unfold right before your eyes gives the theory a soft, undeniable truth. The golden cluster drifts upward for a moment before dispersing like dust, and the larger creature lingers one last time before your window, giving a single long pulse of bright blue that fades gradually into silver, almost like a farewell. Then, with a gentle curve of its body, it glides back into the abyss, its glow diminishing until all that remains is the familiar, endless darkness. You sit there for a long time after it disappears, the quiet hum of the habitat blending with your breath, and an unexpected calm fills your chest, a sense that the deep, in all its vastness and silence, is not empty but aware. Not lonely, but quietly connected, holding secrets it reveals only to those patient enough to sit with its darkness. And as you lean back against the seat of the dome, letting your heartbeat steady again, you understand that what you witnessed was not a threat or a warning, but a reminder that even in the most remote, unreachable places on Earth, life finds a way to communicate, to signal, to illuminate the darkness not out of fear, but out of existence itself. As the last glimmer of the creature's light fades into the deep, you remain in the observation dome, letting the darkness settle around you like a soft blanket, absorbing the stillness in a way that feels almost like breathing in a dream. The habitat hums quietly behind you, its steady rhythm blending with your own heartbeat, and for the first time since you arrived at the bottom of the ocean, you feel entirely synchronized with this world, not as a visitor, not as an outsider, but as someone who has learned to live within its slow, ancient pulse. You lean back against the curved wall, your hand resting lightly on the cold surface of the dome, and your thoughts drift the same way the marine snow drifts outside, floating slowly downward in long, gentle spirals toward the seafloor, each particle moving with the patience of a world that forgets nothing but rushes nothing either. In the distance, faint vibrations ripple through the water, soft, rolling waves of sound that travel from places you will never see, carrying stories older than any human history, stories written not in words, but in motion and pressure, in currents that have flowed across the earth for millions of years. The creatures outside move with the same timeless grace, drifting in and out of view like quiet memories, rising from the edges of your mind, their bodies glowing faintly as they navigate the darkness with purpose and calm. One small comb jelly floats past, spinning slowly as its iridescent rows of cilia catch the faintest hint of your habitat's light, and for a moment the world feels reduced to that single, shimmering movement, simple, peaceful, entirely unhurried. The longer you stay at the bottom of the ocean, the more you understand that life here is defined not by urgency, but by continuity, by the unbroken rhythm of existence that flows without interruption from one moment to the next. And in that realization, a deep calm settles into your body, relaxing your muscles, softening your breath, loosening thoughts that once clung to the edges of your mind. You think of how different this place is from the surface world. No lights, no voices, no constant rush of time. Just the quiet, steady presence of an ocean that keeps its own kind of wisdom, its own slow heartbeat, its own gentle way of holding everything together. As you rest your head against the padded frame of the dome, your eyelids grow heavy, not from exhaustion, but from the tranquility that fills every corner of this habitat. Every drop of water outside, every vibration carrying through the metal. Your body warms in the low ambient heat. Your breathing falls into a soft rhythm, and the silence around you deepens into something warm and intimate, like a companion sitting quietly beside you. You think of the creature that returned, the glowing ribbon of light that hovered at your window, the golden cluster drifting beside it, and you feel a gentle comfort in knowing that even in this vast, dark world where humans rarely venture, life reached out to you, not violently, not mysteriously, but softly with calm pulses of light that mirrored your own steady heartbeat. You close your eyes fully now, the darkness behind them blending seamlessly with the darkness outside, and allow yourself to drift, not upward, not downward, but inward, into the slow, drifting peace of the ocean's deepest night. The hum of the habitat feels like a lullaby, the gentle pressure around you like a protective embrace. And as your mind begins to dissolve into quiet relaxation, you understand that this is what it truly feels like to live at the bottom of the ocean, to surrender to stillness, to breathe with patience, to look at the darkness and find not fear but calm, to feel the ancient ocean cradle you as if holding you in the palm of its hand, and in that final moment before sleep takes you, you sense a familiar ripple of light somewhere far in the blackness, a small reassurance that the deep is watching over you, peaceful and unbroken, as you drift silently into rest.